Today's July 9th, 2017, and I'm going to go over a little bit of code. I've got a folder here on my desktop called Local Storage. If I double click that, you can see that inside I have a style sheet named style.css. Above that, I have the main landing page called index.html, so that's my first web page that opens up the whole system. Then I've got a folder here titled Months, and if I double click that, you can see 12 different web pages inside, January.html all the way to December.html. So I'm going to right click January.html and edit with Notepad++ because I'm going to go over that code shortly. But going back inside of local storage folder, I'm also going to go over my landing page, which is index.html, so I'll edit that with Notepad. And of course, I'm also going to go over the style sheet. So let me right click style.css, edit with Notepad++. Okay, so I've got the three main files that I want to go over, and I don't really need to keep these folders up. Okay, so in Notepad++, I'm going to go to my, let's see, what order am I going to do this? I'll do my index first. I'm going to go to my index.html, highlight it. I'm going to click Run and launch in Firefox. So we're going to open this page up in Firefox. Now, as you can see right here to the right, up here in the tab it says Home. That's the title of this web page. The first thing that you see here is a navigation section, and you see this number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 are list items. We've got 4 list items. Inside of each list item, we have 3 links. And so the first list item here for number 1 is going to have 3 links, January, February, and March. Then when we get to the second list item, we have 3 additional links, April, May, and June. We get to the third list item, we have July, August, and September links. And finally, our fourth list item, we have the links for October, November, and December. And each one of these links is going to open up one of those web pages that stands for a specific month of the year. So when I click on January, down here, this is an iframe at the bottom where you see nothing. The January.html page is going to open up inside of there. So let me click that, and there it is. It's a very simple web page. We've got labels to the left here in this tan background color. Then we've got input areas to the right, which is to output text. Well, to input text actually. And then at the bottom we've got a button that says Save. And we're going to use local storage to save whatever it is we want to save. Now, what I'm creating here is basically a monthly calendar where you can jot in when you paid a particular bill. So for January, we've got rent, so let's just put in any old amount. We're going to put $500, and then let's say that we paid that on 1/1/17, so we can put the date in there too if we want. We don't have to, but you can if you want. It's just whatever you put in here is a note to remind you. We're going to say the electric, we're going to say it was 50. And we're going to pretend that we paid that on the 15th. Then you hit tab and you go to cable. We don't have cable, so we're going to put 0. Go down to car. We're going to say $100. We're going to say that we paid that on the 25th. We're going to go down to the phone. We've got 2 separate phones. Oops, I messed up that. We have 2 separate phones, so I'm going to say 50 and messed it up again, and 50, and we're going to pretend that we paid for those 2 cell phone bills on, I don't know, the 3rd, whatever. Okay, now I put some information in for January, just some bogus amounts just to show you how this works. I click on my save button here, and when I refresh my page, all of my information stayed. If I click February, you can see down here, this is opening up the February.html web page, and there's no information saved in here yet. If I go back to January, click on this January link, which opens up the January.html web page, you can see that all the information has been saved. Now, just to double check, let's just close completely out of the browser. Come back over here to the index.html file again. Make sure that it's highlighted, not the January and not the style, but the index.html. Go to Run again, launch in Firefox, and click on January. And all of the January information has definitely stayed by us using JavaScript local storage in our code. So let's go over the index page, which is this page that says home up here at the top. So starting with the top line here, we have HTML opening tag. We've got an opening head tag, which you can see here on line 2, and the ending head tag on line 7. So let's go through all the information that's in the heading part of our web page. We've got title, opening title and closing title with the word home in between, and that's how we get home to show up on the browser's tab. The next thing we have is right here, this link, and I don't actually have an icon yet, but when I make an icon, it will show a little image next to the title home up here. But this is the code that allows you to do that. It's link rel equals shortcut icon in double quotes, href equals icon.ico in double quotes, and really whatever the name of my little icon is, that is what's going to replace icon.ico. So it could be triangle.ico, heart.ico, block.ico, or I can just name whatever my image is, icon.ico, and I won't have to rename this at all. After that, we have type equals image / x dash icon, and then we close the tag like this, the / greater than sign. So this is the whole thing right there that's going to allow us to put an image on that browser tab. Next, I have this line of code right here that says meta name equals viewport in double quotes, content equals width semicolon device dash width, and all of that is in double quotes, and then close that tag up. Next, I have what's going to link to the external CSS style sheet, and that's this right here, style.css, which I'm not going to go over yet, but this is linking to it. Link rel equals style sheet in quote, media equals, and all of this is in single quotes, screen and in parentheses min dash width colon 1 pix and in parentheses max dash width colon 700 pix. So basically what that is saying is, as long as the browser window is between the width of 1 pixel and 700 pixels, it is going to use a style sheet right here named style.css. So we've got href equals style.css in quotes. So that's the entire link that is going to utilize our external CSS style sheet. Now let me show you how this minimum width, maximum width range works. Right now, if I squeeze my browser as tightly narrow as I can, it's obviously wider than 1 pixels, but I can't squeeze it any further than that because the element's on the page. But watch what happens when I widen this browser's window and I go beyond 700 pixels of width. I'm going to lose my style. So pay attention to the colors here and what this page looks like, and watch what happens when the style disappears. It's still in there. It's going to disappear pretty soon. There we go. See right there. There's within my range, and as soon as I make it just a little bit too much, this is what the web page looks like when it has no style attached to it. So that's what this CSS style sheet does for you. It lets you take your elements and make them fit and look and be colored and padded and margins and all that just the way you want it to look. So anyway, I don't need to keep this wide. I just wanted to show you what happens when we get out of our range for the style sheet. Now, if you don't want to mess with ranges, you don't have to have this right here, this whole media equals screen and min width 1 pixel and max width 700 pixels. You can actually take that part out. If I take this and copy it and paste it right underneath itself, and then let's see if I can comment that out. Okay, so I've commented the original out, and then I'm going to just delete this media part. So all we have now is link rel equals stylesheet, href equals style.css. Let me save this and let me refresh this page. Now when I widen this, you see there's no range that is forcing a certain size to dictate what style sheet we are going to use, or none at all. Now we're basically using the style sheet regardless of how wide it is. So the purpose between using different style sheets for different widths is, let's say you want to create this little app, and for a very small window, for a very small device, you might want to give it a certain style sheet when it's this wide. And when it gets bigger, you might want to change the styles up a little. You might want to make your buttons bigger and your font bigger and all this other stuff. You might want to make it bigger. You just might want to style it just different for the heck of it, just to practice different CSS style sheets. You might just want to do that. But in the meantime, I just wanted to show you that to link an external style sheet, this is all you really need down here at line 10. But if you want to do multiple style sheets, or if you want to only grab a style sheet when it's in a certain range, then you would make sure that you use this part as well. Alright, so anyway, let me get out of the head. I've went over everything in the head. Here's the ending head tag. So I can close up the head, and here's the opening body tag. So from this opening OL tag, which means ordered list, that starts at line 13, and if I go all the way down, I look for the other purple ending OL tag right here, it ends at line 53. All of this code in between those two lines is what gives me this whole navigation section that I've got, January, February, March, all the way to December. And so let's go over that part of the code. And then down here on line 55, the iframe from here to here, that is the code that gives us this little square at the bottom that opens up different pages. It's called an iframe. So anyway, let me go back up here and let's go over the navigation. So again, starting on line 13, we have our opening OL tag and an opening list item. So from line 14 to line 21, we have our first list item. And because we are using an OL instead of a UL, OL stands for ordered list, we get a number. If we didn't want a number, we would have the UL, and we could put images if we wanted. But I wanted the numbers because since I'm dealing with the calendar, I want to deal with the months and quarters of years. So the number 1 here would be the first quarter of the year. And number 2 is going to represent the second quarter, number 3 represents the third quarter, and number 4 represents the fourth quarter of the year. So that's how I wanted to do that. So anyway, here's the opening list tag, and way down here in line 21 is the closing list tag, and inside the list tag we've got 3 links. So our link starts with this A, and it goes from this A and it ends here on line 16 with this closing A tag. So the whole link says A ref equals months. That's months is this folder here. Okay, move this right here. So the folder called months, you go inside the folder called months. So if I open up the folder called months, we're going to point to January.html web page. It's going to point to this one right here. Then we have target equals TV, And target equals TV means we're going to open this page called January.html, which resides in a folder called months. We're going to open it up in something called TV. Well, it's an iframe. So if I go all the way to the bottom of my page, you're going to see that iframe right here. And iframe src equals empty quotes. That means initially there's no source for the iframe. That's why we see just a blank box at the bottom of the page. We gave class equal TV in case we want to stylize the iframe. We gave an ID set equal to TV. Again, the class or the ID, we can style it in CSS. We also gave it a name equal to TV. And the name equals TV is how we are targeting this iframe to open our various month pages in this iframe web page element. All right, so let me close this up and go back up to where I was, back up to my navigation section here. So that was the first link. aref equals months / January.html, target equals TV, and in between the opening link tag and closing link tag, we just have the name January, and that's what you actually see here with the underline. That's what you actually click on. So if I put January ZZZ here and save it here and refresh it here, you can see that the link changes to January ZZZ. So that's basically letting you know that that's what the user gets to click on. So there's our first link. Our second link is right there, and it's exactly the same syntax, except it's pointing to a different web page and it's got a different name for the link that you click on. So aref equals, in double quotes, months / February.html, target equals TV in double quotes, and the link that you're going to click on is the text February, and then you have your ending A tag to end the link. Our third link goes from here to here. aref equals months / March.html, all of that in double quotes, target equals TV in double quotes, and we're going to actually let the user click on the word March. Then you have your ending A for your ending link, and then your ending LI. So we have basically went over the first list item that has 3 links inside for our ordered list. So we went over, I could actually refresh this since I took the Z's off. And now you don't see the Z's after January anymore. So we click on January, the January page is loading down here in the side frame. You click on February, the February page is loading down here in the side frame, and you click on March, if it'll let you click. And you see down here March 2017. You've got the March page opening up in the iframe. All right, so you can pretty much tell that everything else that I'm going to read about this index.html page is going to be a repeat, because now we're going to go down to the next list item, which starts on line 25 and ends on line 32. So if I click on the opening list item tag, it turns purple, and its partner ending LI tag turns purple. So there's our number 2 list item, and here's our links. aref equals months / April.html, target equals TV, and the user will click on the word April, and there's the ending A. The next link is aref equals months / May.html, target equals TV. The user will click on the word May, and then you've got the ending A tag. Last link, aref equals months / June.html, target equals TV. The user will click on the word June, and then you have your closing A tag and your closing LI tag. So that was our second list item with 3. That did April. Click on April. You see down here it changed. Click on May. You see May changed. June, and you see June changed. So my links are working great. Let's go down to the third list item, which starts on line 35 and ends on line 42. Opening list item and closing list item tag. Here's the first link inside of there. aref equals months / July.html, target equals TV. The user will click on the word July, and then you have your ending link tag. your ending A, which is for link. The second link, A, ref equals months / August.html, target equals TV. The user will click on the word August, ending A tag. And finally, for this list item, we have A, ref equals months / September.html, target equals TV. The user will click on the word September to open the September.html web page in the iframe with the name of TV. So there's the ending list item there. Let's go down. We've got one more to go. So starting on line 45 and ending on line 52, we have this list item, opening list item tag here, closing list item tag down here. Here's a link. A, ref equals months / October.html, target equals TV, and the word to click on is October. Next link, A, ref equals months / November.html, target equals TV. The user will click on the name November. The last link, A, ref equals months / December.html, target equals TV, and they will click on the word December. Ending list item, ending OL tag. And now again, I'm going to say it again. Here's the iframe code. iframe src equals an empty double quotes, class equals TV in double quotes, ID equals TV in double quotes, name equals TV in double quotes, and then we have your ending iframe tag right there. Ending body tag, ending HTML. So that is the entire index.html landing page. So if I refresh this, actually let me close this and let me reopen it. Run, launch in Firefox. This is what it looks like the very first time you open index.html. This iframe has nothing showing in here, nothing, because source is set to an empty string. It's not actually pointing to anything until we click on a link. I'm going to click on all the links one more time. There's January, there's February, there's March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. So yes, all of my pages are linking. Let's test. I already showed you January. Let's test all the rest of them, because since there's 12 individual web pages, I want to test them to make sure that there were no coding errors in any of them. So with February, I'm just gonna say Feb rent and Feb electric, Feb cable, Feb car, Feb phones. Click save. Now let's go to March, and I'm just going to type an M, hit tab, type an M, tab, M, tab, M, tab, M, and click save. Let's go to April, click April, and I'll do the same thing. A, tab, A, tab, A, tab, A, tab, A. Make sure you click save. Go to May. May, let's see if I can copy and paste this. Copy, Control V, down, Control V, down, Control V, down, and Control V. Hit save. June, just a bunch of J's. J tab, J tab, J tab, J tab, J. July, do the same thing there. Copy and paste. Copy, paste, tab, Control V, tab, Control V, tab, Control V, hit save. August, we'll just put AU, tab, AU, tab, AU, tab, AU, tab, AU. Make sure you click save. September, a bunch of S's. S tab, S tab, S tab, S tab, S. Click save. October, let's put just a bunch of O's. O tab, O tab, O tab, O tab, O. See, when you create code, you have to make sure that you test every single option to make sure that you don't have any misspellings or anything wrong with your naming conventions, or if you make any mistakes at all, you might have everything work except for, maybe this particular October car section might not save correctly. So you have to test everything. So even though this seems really redundant, this is important. This is important when you're doing any kind of programming. You have to test it thoroughly. All right, let's click November. And I'm just going to say NO, tab, NO, tab, NO, tab, NO, tab, NO, save. And finally, December, I'll just put a bunch of D's in there. D, tab, D, tab, D, tab, D, tab, D. Now, if I went through any of these and forgot to hit the save button, then when I refresh this page or go out of it and come back, it will not save. So that's pretty important to remember, that the save button is needed to save anything that you put in this little calendar thing. So we close the browser out. Now we're going to open this index.html again, and hopefully every single one of our little text areas saved properly. So launch in Firefox. Let's click on January. Okay, everything's in there. February, everything's in there. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So everything, every little one of these little inputs saved using local storage. Okay, so before I get into the actual individual web page here, it's this January.html I'm going to go over. Before I do that, let me go over the style that actually gives this the look that it has. Because without the style, this is the look of the web page. With the style, this is the look. And it's not that different, but it's different enough for you to see the change. So starting at the beginning of style.css, on line 1, I stylized my label, which my label here is the rent, electric, cable, car, and phones. So inside the curly braces, label got background color tan, display block, float left, text align right, width 70 pixels, and padding 5 pixels. The next thing that got some style was input. And the input is both buttons and text. So this particular button that says save on it got a special ID of BTN. If I didn't give it that, it would have still had a background color of pink, because it is an input, and all inputs had these particular styles: padding of 5 pixels, background color of pink, and width of 185 pixels. That's for all of these pink areas. That's the input. But again, a button is also an input, but because I gave that button an ID of BTN, it has its own specific styles, which are border 5 pixel green outset, background color lime, border radius 20 pixels, font weight bold, font size 15 pixels, and margin left 80 pixels. Which brings me down to the legend. And inside of the curly braces for the legend, we have font family cursive, color purple, font size 15 pixels. And the legend element in this web page is this part right here that happens to say December 2017. And if I click on January, the legend is the part that says January 2017. Then the next thing I did was a style for the iframe. And that's this box down here that opens up all the various web pages using the links. So the iframe has resize none, border thick gray outset, height of 350 pixels, width of 330 pixels, and a background color of beige. If I gave it a background color of, I'm going to say red, and this is going to look very ugly, but I just want to show you the iframe. That's the iframe. See, now it's all red. That's really awful. So let's go back to beige. And refresh the page. There we go. So that was the iframe. We only have a few more things that are styled. The OL, which is the ordered list, a border of thick gray solid, padding left of 0 pixels, and width of 330 pixels. The list items inside of the ordered list are right here. So LI, and then inside the curly braces we have border, thick gray outset, list style position inside, and padding 3 pixels. Lastly, I stylized the link, and the link starts with an A tag, so each link I just gave a margin of 7 pixels so that it would give a little bit of space in between the words January, February, and March. If I take that margin off by misspelling margin by putting a Z in front of it, and I save it and I refresh the page, you see how all of the months are smashed together, all of the links for the months. That was not, I didn't like that, so let me put the margin of 7 pixels back. And if you want even more space, then you just make the margin size larger. All right, so I went over the entire external CSS style sheet, which is named style.css. So I can close out of this now. Now let's look at the individual month web page itself. This is called January.html, and when you click this January link, the January page opens up down here in this iframe. So we have HTML, head, in the title tags we've got January, which, because the January web page is opening up inside of an iframe that belongs to the index.html home page or landing page, if you will, there's only one tab up here, and the tab that says home belongs to this page, index.html. January is opening up inside here, so there's not, you don't see the browser tab. But if you did, for instance, okay, I have January.html highlighted. Let me just hit run, launch in Firefox. This is just, this is just the page. This is the January page. So now you see in the browser tab January, because it's in between these title tags. Again though, because this January page is opening up down here in this iframe, you don't see this tab. But it's in the code anyway, so there you go. All right. Same thing as with the index page. I gave myself a link in case I wanted to put an icon, but for the same reason you can't see January because it's opening up in an iframe, this really is kind of useless too. The meta, this is the same thing that was in the index. Meta, name equals viewport, content equals width, device width. And this is also linking to the style CSS. Okay, so we have link rel equals style sheet in quotes, media equals screen, and min width 1 pix and max width 700 pix. This is different. The index.html, let me go back up to the top. In the head is actually something in the head right here. The link to the external style sheet is href equals style.css, because when I open up my folder here, because index.html is not in a different folder than style.css. You see the files are both next to each other. They're not in their own separate folder. So index can point directly to style.css, and that's what it does. Index.html points directly to style.css. Now, when we go to the January page, however, January is inside its own folder here called months. So you have to jump inside of this months folder to get to January all the way to December. Now, once you're in here like we are right now we're looking at January.html. You're inside of a folder. In order for this January.html file to access the external style sheet, it has to jump outside of the folder named months and then point to style.css. And the way that it does that is here, instead of href pointing directly to style.css, we have // which means we are jumping out of a folder so that we can point to a file outside of the folder. Now, if you had a file that was nested inside of many folders, then you would do this, .. That means that you're jumping outside of this folder to get to this folder, and you're jumping outside of this folder, and then you're finally being able to access this. So here you're jumping out of folder 3 times. Well, we don't need to do that because we don't have these nested folders. We only have one folder that we're jumping out of in order to point to style.css. Okay, so then let's get to the script. Let's now finally get to the script, which is going to do all the saving work for our data here. So starting with line 7, you have your opening script tag, and that takes us all the way down. Where's our ending script? To line 82, which is our ending script tag and our ending head. So let's go over all of that stuff. It's quite a few functions. The first function, starting with line 8, is called function save my stuff, and it's got an empty parentheses and an opening curly brace. Now function save my stuff starts on line 8, and this opening curly brace goes all the way down to here. There's the closing curly brace. And there is a comment that says end save my stuff. So till line 25, let's go over that. Function save my stuff. And I'm going to do this statement by statement. So I'm going to take this all the way to the semicolon. Var January rent value equals document.getElementById, and in parentheses you have January rent in a single quote, and then a dot value. So that completes that whole statement. And then the next statement we have is local storage dot set item, and in parentheses we have January rent key in single quotes, comma, January rent value, and then you end that statement. So basically for the January rent value we have 2 statements, and I read them both, and we're going to do the same thing for the electric and the cable. We're going to do the same thing for the car and for the phone. So we're going to have 2 statements. So let's look at, see these two statements that are highlighted here from 10 and 11. That is making sure that this section right here, whatever we type in it and we click the save button, it's going to save that data in the browser. Well, the browser's going to save it. All right, so now let's go to what's going to save the electric. And that's these 2 statements. Var January electric value equals document.getElementById, in parentheses and single quotes January electric, and then outside the parentheses we have dot value, and end that with a semicolon. And the next we have local storage dot set item, and in parentheses January electric key in single quotes, comma, January electric value. Close up your parenthesis and close up your semicolon. Now we're going to go to this little section and do the 2 statements it takes to save that. The first statement being var January cable value equals document.getElementById, parentheses January cable in single quotes, dot value, and the next statement is local storage dot set item, parentheses and single quotes January cable key, comma, January cable value. Now let's go down to the 2 statements that will save this particular. That is var January car value equals document.getElementById, parentheses and single quotes January car dot value, and the statement that goes along with that is local storage dot set item, parentheses single quotes January car key, comma, January car value. Now let's go to this final little snip down here to save the phones. Here's the first statement. var January phones value, var January phones value equals document.getElementById by ID in parentheses and single quotes January phones dot value. It's the first statement. And then here's the statement to set it. Local storage dot set item, and in parentheses we've got January phones key in double quotes. In single quotes, comma, January phones value. So that is the end of save my stuff. So you have your ending semicolon here. So we just finished the whole function about save my stuff, which allows us to type stuff in each of these little sections, and the browser will save that information. We can get it and save it. Now let's go to this next function called load my stuff, because once we save this stuff, every time you open the browser up brand new, you want to load all the stuff that it's saved. So here from line 29, we start the function load my stuff, and let's see where it ends. It starts on line 29 and it ends on line 56. End of load my stuff. So let's go over this. This is going to load it all when we close the browser and come back. So function load my stuff, empty parentheses, opening curly brace. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to read it statement by statement. So every time we have this ending semicolon, that's going to end a statement. Var stored rent equals local storage.getItem, and in parentheses and quotes January rent key, end that statement with a semicolon. And we have an if condition here, which is the second statement. If, and in parentheses we have stored rent, then in our curly braces we have document.getElementById, parentheses and single quotes January rent dot value equals stored rent. And then we end that curly brace for the if condition. So from here to here is the if condition. And that ends our stored rent. So whatever was stored here from before, when we close this browser and open it back up, load my stuff is going to load it in here. Bring it back up. So let's do the same thing for loading the electric, if the electric was actually typed in previously. So that's this statement. Var stored electric equals local storage.getItem, parentheses, quotes January electric key, semicolon, and then the if condition that's basically asking, did we store a value for the electric? So if stored electric, if there's a value for that, which would make it true, if stored electric, then in the curly braces we have document.getElementById, parentheses and quotes January electric, dot value equals stored electric. And then you put your ending curly brace for the if condition right there. Let's do the same thing for the cable so that we can load any cable values if there are any. So the first statement is var stored cable equals local storage.getItem, parentheses, single quotes January cable key, semicolon. And here's the if condition that checks if we actually had a value in there. If, parentheses, stored cable, curly brace, document.getElementById, parentheses, quotes January cable, dot value equals stored cable. And end your curly brace there. Let's go to our car. First statement, var stored car equals local storage.getItem, parentheses, and quotes January car key, semicolon. Here we're going to check it with the if condition. If, parentheses, stored car, then in curly braces we have document.getElementById, parentheses, quotes January car dot value equals stored car, semicolon, and ending curly brace. Let's do the same thing for the phones. Var stored phones equals local storage.getItem, parentheses and quotes January phones key, semicolon. Here's the if condition. It's checking if we actually had a data value in there at all. If, parentheses, stored phones, then in curly braces, document.getElementById, parentheses, quotes January phones, dot value equals stored phones. Ending semicolon, ending curly brace. And here is the end of load my stuff, our line 56. So we finished that one. The next function we're going to look at is actually a function that I am not using because I basically commented out another button. But I'm going to go over it anyway just because it might be something you might want to play with in the future. And what it's doing is we are creating key value pairs so that the browser can hold on to this data information, and there's only so much information that a browser will save for you. It's not an endless amount. It's like 5 megabytes or something to that effect. So this, how much is left, is going to show us how much room the browser has to store more information. So starting with line 61, function how much is left, it goes from line 61, let's see how far down it goes, to line 81. So actually it goes down to the very end. And after I go over this code, I will bring a button back up just so I can show you how it works. So function how much is left, empty parentheses and opening curly brace. We're going to create 3 statements here, 3 variables, and we're going to set values to them. We have var total equals 0, semicolon. The next statement, we're going to create a variable called full and set it to 5. Var full equals 5.0, semicolon. And lastly, we are going to create another variable with the name of leftover, and we're setting it to a value of 0. So var leftover equals 0. Here we have a for loop. So we're starting that off from here to here. For var x in local storage, you got this opening curly brace that goes from line 66 to line 72. So here's this for loop. This whole thing. Var amount equals parentheses local storage index x dot length times 2 divided by 1024 divided by 1024, semicolon. The next statement is total plus equals amount, semicolon. And the third statement is document.write in parentheses x plus the string in double quotes space equals space plus amount dot to fixed parentheses 10 plus the string space MB and then a break tag, and then end that statement with a semicolon, and then the whole for loop ends right here at line 72. After the for loop, we have this statement, document.write, parentheses, the string, everything that's that lighter color in the double quotes, a break tag. The total local storage used in this particular web browser at this given time is, and then outside of the double quotes we have plus total dot to fixed, parentheses 10, plus, now we have another string in double quotes, space MB break tag break tag. All right, then you close up your parentheses and finalize that statement with its semicolon. The next statement, leftover equals full minus total. The next statement, document.write, parentheses full dot to fixed, parentheses 10, plus the string in double quotes, space MB is the presumed storage capacity for local storage in a certain web browser, break tag break tag. Move on down, go to the next statement, actually the last statement in the script. Document.write, parentheses leftover dot to fixed, parentheses 10, plus the string in double quotes, MB is the amount of local storage that you have left over in this particular browser at this time. Close up your parentheses and end your semicolon and end your curly brace here, which ends that entire how much is left function. Now I have to open up a button so that I can show you how this how much is left works. But before I do that, I want to read the rest of this web page. So we have our ending script tag and our ending head tag. Let's talk about the elements that you actually see in the body here. So starting with line 85, we have this tag right here. It's the opening body tag, but we're using the keyword onload equals, and then we're calling a function that we created and I went over earlier called load my stuff. So body onload equals load my stuff with the empty parentheses, and all that's enclosed in a semicolon, double quotes and ending with semicolon. So that's our opening body tag. What that means is when January is first opened, January.html, the onload event of the body is going to call the load my stuff function. All right, now after that we have a web page element called a field set, and the field set starts on line 88 and ends on line 121. So the field set is everything that you see inside of this iframe. The field set has a legend here. The legend says January 2017. The field set has this real thin line that goes all the way around all the stuff inside of it. So it's basically like everything is nested inside of the field set. So let's go back up to the top of the field set. Here's the legend I told you about. It says January 2017. That's right here. Then we have paragraph from line 91 to line 94, and in this paragraph we have a label and an input. So you're going to pretend this is a paragraph where it has a label that says rent, and it has an input that is this little pink area that depends on what the user wants to type in. So for the label, we have label ID equals LBL1 for equals rent, and then we have the text rent with a semicolon and an ending label tag. This for rent is letting us know what the label belongs to, and rent down here, when we go down to the input, name equals rent, that's letting us know that this label belongs to this input, because we're matching the for rent with the name rent so that they're together. So that this was the label, and here's the input. Line 93 is the input. Input ID equals January rent, name equals rent. Close that tag up right there. And then you're ending P, so you're closing up the paragraph. Now let's look at the next paragraph. From line 96 to line 98. Opening P tag, here's the label. The label goes from here to here. Label ID equals LBL2 for electric, and then you see the text electric with a semicolon, and then your ending label tag, and then here's the input. This is the pink space next to the label. Input ID equals January electric, name equals electric, and your P tag. Let's go to the next P. Label ID equals LBL3 for equals cable, and then there's the text cable that you visually see on the page, your ending label tag, and then here's the pink next to it. Input ID equals January cable, name equals cable. End that input and end the P tag. Let's go to the next one. Here's the next paragraph. Inside this paragraph we've got a label. Label ID equals LBL4, 4 equals car, and then you have the text car and then the ending label tag. Then you have the input that's next to it that says input ID equals January car, name equals car. Close up that input tag, close up the paragraph tag. Let's look at the next paragraph. Next paragraph has this label. Label ID equals LBL5, 4 equals phones, the text phones, and the ending label tag. Next to the label tag we have the input. Input ID equals January phones, name equals phones. End the input tag, end your paragraph tag. Alright, now we're getting close to the end. Here we have an input that's the button. It's the save button at the bottom. So from line 115 and 116, this is the whole green button. Input, type equals button, ID equals BTN, value equals save, and on click, we gave this button an on click event. On click equals voila, we're calling the Save My Stuff function that I read earlier in the script tags. So when we click on this button, it's going to call the Save My Stuff function. Okay, this is the button that I told you I commented it out and I wasn't going to use it, but now I'm going to get rid of the comment tags so that you can actually see what I'm talking about. Let me refresh the page. See, now I have to scroll down here. It says how much is left, and I also have to take, maybe I can just misspell it, put a Z in front of the word disabled, because the button was disabled. And let me refresh this again. Okay, so now you can see how much is left. It's not disabled any longer. So when I click this button, how much is left, look at what you get. You get all kind of stuff. You have November car key equals 0.00000038147 megabytes. Then you have March car key equals, and you have a numeric value. You have April electric key, and there's a value next to that. You have May phones key, there's a value next to that. You have April phones key, and on and on and on. You've got all these keys, these key values that we created, that the browser is holding on to that information. And I go scroll down and you can just see it just goes on and on and on for every month, for every page that this browser is saving. Now this part didn't exactly work right, because this says the total local storage used in this particular web browser at this given time is NaNMB, which means not a number. But you can clearly see that there's all these values here, but somehow in my code, when you were supposed to add up all these values, it didn't do it right here. And then right here, this output message says 5 point and then all those zeros. MB is the presumed storage capacity for local storage in a certain web browser. And then our last little statement here, NaN, again, that means not a number, so this is not the output that I wanted. NaNMB is the amount of local storage that you have left over in this particular browser at this time. So this particular browser is Firefox, right? So my function that's supposed to let me know how much more local storage there is isn't telling me what I want to know. It is showing me all my keys here, and it is showing values that each piece of the data holds, you know, like how much space it's holding, but it's not giving me the math down here. How much do I have left? Let me try to do this exact same page in another, let me try it in launching in Chrome. Alright, this is wide so that it's not showing me my CSS, so let me narrow this so you can see my style pop back. And it's actually not doing it. Interesting. Oh, there it is. Okay, for whatever reason I had to refresh the page. Okay, so this is just opening up January by itself, January.html. It's not currently opening up an index, it's opening up in its own page. Alright, so if you'll notice, I opened this up in a brand new browser in Chrome, not Firefox. So it saved no values here. It saved no values because when you use local storage, it's dependent wherever you are typing, whatever browser you're using to type this information in, and then you click save, this is the browser that's going to save this. So if I save this information in Chrome and then open this back up in Firefox, these changes are not going to be in Firefox because Chrome and browser are two different entities. They're different browsers. But before I waste too much time on this video, let me click this how much is left button and see how Chrome handles my code. Now Chrome, we see all of these keys up here with these values, but our output messages, Chrome is actually giving me amounts, whereas Firefox didn't. Chrome says the total local storage used in this particular web browser at this given time is 0.00006027222 MB. And the next statement says 5 point however many zeros that is megabytes is the presumed storage capacity for local storage in a certain web browser. And again, Google Chrome did the math for me. 4.999,397,2778 megabytes is the amount of local storage that you have left over in this particular browser at this time. So basically the point of this exercise is that if a browser will save this much megabytes of storage, and based on everything that I've done as far as saving some bill information for every single month of the year, I see that I still have over 4.99. I almost have the 5.0. Very little storage has been lost, basically, is the point. So even though I didn't get this information in Firefox, Chrome is giving it to me. Let's see if I can open this up in IE. Let's see what Internet Explorer will do. I'm not sure. I didn't test it yet. Allow blocked content. Do you want to debug this web page? Yes. And unable to get property get item of undefined or null reference. Okay. Well, I don't have the answers for that right now. And that must be why, that's null value references must be why we have this NaN, not a number scenario with Firefox. In any event, I don't really need this for my application. I needed it for testing purposes. I don't need a user to need that information. It's basically something that I wanted to test myself. So I can comment that back out and just refresh my page and get out of this. So now the button is no longer visible. And let's test this and see if Internet Explorer saves. So I'm going to say IE January save, and I'm going to take this whole thing, copy it, and I'm going to paste it. Control V, tab, Control V, tab, Control V, tab, Control V. Save it, and I don't think it's going to save it. I could be wrong, but let's refresh. And I keep getting this error message. So something is definitely wrong with the code when it comes to Internet Explorer. So if I close Internet Explorer and I try to run that page again in Internet Explorer again, it did not save. So in fact, well, let me do this first. And yeah, it did not save. So I need to find the code that will allow Internet Explorer to use local storage and to tell me how much storage I have left over. So this is not browser compatible for Internet Explorer. My code does not work for Internet Explorer. So that's something to research. And it works fine in Chrome and Firefox. Oh, I don't think I completed this whole thing. I opened this button and showed you how that one function worked, but I don't want to use it, so I commented it back out. Finally, we end our field set with an ending field set tag that closes up this nice thin box around everything, and then our ending body tag and our ending HTML finishes up this entire January.html page. February all the way to December is exactly the same. The only thing that's different is everywhere I have a month, I highlighted it, and the new name of the month goes there. That's the only changes that were made.